Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at Antigone, the Theban Princess by Thomas May, written sometime in the late 1620s, maybe the early 1630s, probably after, almost certainly after Cleopatra, which we have already read his version of, and I believe before, but maybe after Julia Agrippina. So we're slowly working our way through the work of Thomas May. I'm going to see what we make of this particular text and reading it today with us. Reading Antigone, Nuntius, Eurydice, and second chorus is...
Liza Graham, in London, right here on your screen.
Reading Aemon, Argia, and Aephytus is...
Desna in Lancaster.
Reading Dircus and Deiphile is...
Tom in Brighton.
Reading Ianthus, chorus, first chorus, and Menaetes is... muted at present.
It's Matthew Roberts in London.
And reading Oedipus, Ornitus, Creon, and third chorus is...
I am Gregory in Stratford-on-Avon. What is it about me and blinded dads?
Yeah, you've got a bit of a rep there with some of the past readings. Go to Tancred and Gismunda for more eye-gouging moments. Though I think we're well past that in this particular version of the myth, so no content warnings necessarily necessary for that kind of action, though I'm sure there'll be lots of discussion about it. I'm your host, Robert Crighton, and I'll be reading stage directions and generally moving things forward. And so, without further ado, we start with Act 1, Scene 1. Enter Oedipus, led by Antigone.
Let go this wicked hand. O daughter, leave me while thou art virtuous. Before the infection of my crimes do blast thy goodness, or draw some plague upon thee, this dire head, abhorred by heaven and earth, living in Thebes, brought forth a pestilence, which help of art could never cure, until, by heaven's decree, most hateful, I was banished from the city. O daughter, leave me!
Never, never, sir. While you are here, Cytheron's craggy mount is my abode, and far preferred before Labdacus' stately palace or the towers of wealthy Thebes for which my brothers strive. What there I loved, I am possessed of here, my father's presence. Do not banish me thither again. That place is banishment while you are here. What but impiety and brother's hatred shall I there behold?
Oh, thou art too good, Antigone. Thy birth would make me love my crimes, but that all sense of virtue as of light is dead in me. If thou wilt guide me to that high and fatal cliff from whence unhappy Ieno pursued, leaped down into the seas, and met the danger which she fled. There let me lie concealed forever from the eye of heaven. Ah, could I kill my memory as well, that no succeeding ages might relate the name and story of sad Oedipus.
Be not unjust unto yourself to think you have deserved death. The gods call that mishap and error, which your cruel self against yourself call crime. Jove would not hold his vengeful thunder if he judged it so. The age were good, were men as penitent for true and real faults as you for that which ignorance hath wrought, and was the crime of fate itself, not yours. You could not think that Theban Laius and Jocasta were your hapless parents, and too great a fear of being guilty made you what you feared. Remembering what the oracle foretold, you left a kingdom's glory, and forsook good Polybus and loving Merope, your then supposed parents, and betook yourself unto a willing banishment. What more than this could you have done? To keep your goodness, you forsook a crown, which others strive to attain by all impiety. Yet cruel fate pursued you still, and made your virtuous mind the way to your offense, as if the gods themselves had punished you for striving to be innocent when they had foredecreed your guilt. Take comfort, sir. No man offends but where the will consents.
How well canst thou, Antigone, that bearest a magazine of virtuous thoughts within thee, speak words of comfort, but accursed I am most incapable. There's naught in me but horror, grief, despair, and misery. Show me some way of death, or let me go.
I cannot leave you, sir, nor show your death, but where I mean to bear you company.
I never should have had a virtuous child, but to afflict me more. Nature will work a miracle to make my sufferings greater. The sun shall bring black night, the evening star usher the day, and sea shall meet the sky to make addition to my misery.
Good sir, go take some rest. Do not destroy that life on which another life depends.
There's none but thou has a commanding power, O Oedipus. If thou command me to leap into Sicilian Etna's scalding throat, I'll gladly do it. If thou wilt have it so, I will, like Titius, with my fever. I will, like Titius, with my liver feed a tiring vulture. More I will take rest. Nay, most of all, I'll live at thy request.
Ah, I see some signs of rest upon him now.
And they exit. I mean, I was sort of, my mental note here was sort of go hard or go home. I mean, it really is. It really pushes at you really nicely. I'm and the energy you brought into that, I think, is really nice, and it's quite economical as well. Actually, it's punching us all with the sort of backstory quite quickly. It's doing it in a reasonably plausible, I don't know why I'm telling you this, setup. That's a good opening. I like that. We have been down on Thomas May before, so this is a pleasant surprise. Any thoughts on the room on that, Greg?
Yeah, I was a really nice punch, as you say. Oedipus telling his own story, wailing his own fate, but not to the end whereby you think, oh, just get off the ruddy stage. And Antigone almost proving a chorus in that, with that thing about the line about the parents and so on. That was a really nice opening scene. It didn't feel like we were in the middle of a play. I think, was it Cleopatra who felt like we were thrown into the middle of a play? But yeah, no, really interesting.
Yeah, and there's sort of hints of stage directions within the text, like Antigone. I see some signs of rest upon him now, which gives us clues as to where potentially you're supposed to take that latter end of the scene. Oedipus is that you're supposed to actually calm and be more in a position to be taken away. Matthew?
Just the sense of place from the very beginning when Antigone talks about the craggy mounts and then about the stately palace and then the place of banishment. Just the symbolism, bang, bang, bang. I know where I am. It locates it really clearly.
Yeah, and especially if we're thinking initially as an audio version, it's telling us everything we need to know in a really effective way. I mean, that's not always our framing, but it's good for us. It makes us happy. Other thoughts? Otherwise, we'll crack on. I don't know how many short scenes there are. It might be a bit choppy, so we might stop and start a lot. Anyway, Act 1, Scene 2, enter Aemon.
How well this sad and solitary place sweeps with my thoughts. These unfrequented woods, where nature, void of artificial robes, presents her naked and ungarnished face. In such abodes as these dwelt piety, white innocence and spotless chastity in that first golden age when Saturn reigned. And still, methinks, within these woods he reigns. Though banished quite from all the world beside, here lives the soul of virtue. Here abides the fair Antigone, whose matchless goodness upbraids and expiates this age's crimes, and quite outweighs the impiety of Thebes. This place the gods, disdaining other sights, behold with wonder, when Antigone with pious hands directs her blinded sire, the woeful Oedipus. Hither the graces, the chaster nymphs and harmless dryads, leaving their bowers of pleasure, all resort to wait on her and bear her company.
Enter Antigone to Aemon.
My father is asleep. You powers above, send sweet refreshment to his wearied soul. Oh, pity him and punish not too far that crime which fate and you yourselves have made. He has already been himself a judge too cruel to himself to expiate his fatal errors, left a crown and sceptre, fled man's society and day itself, torn out his innocent, unhappy eyes. Now, since he wants the comfort of your light, grant him a quiet, undisturbed night. Young Aemon, here.
Pardon me, royal virgin, think it not rudeness in me thus to press upon your privacies, but call it service, or zeal to wait upon you and behold what I do most admire.
Sir, 'tis no fault that I can apprehend, or if it be, 'tis such a fault as punishes itself. This is the house of sorrow. Naught is here that can invite or recompense your coming.
To visit you, so you be pleased to grace that visit with a welcome, is a blessing. Your place has power to lessen. It would make hell's saddest cave a fair Elysium.
You come from court and speak as that has taught you. This place knows no such language.
Haman never was taxed of flattery, nor will your worth admit it. Gentle lady, be but pleased to think my heart speaks in my tongue to you. Oh, give me leave but to confess my flame, which can never be hid. A better fire, more chaste, more true, and full of constancy, I dare maintain it, warms no breast on earth. No earthly power but sweet Antigone can sentence me to bliss or endless woe. Oh, save that creature that depends on you. Make me immortal by a fair return of grace from you and favour.
Noble Aemon, that title, though I hated you, your worth would challenge from my truth. I love you better than so to work your ruin. Love and wedlock have still been fatal in our family. The baleful owls and croaking ravens sing our Hymenaean songs, and furies light their brands for torches to our bridal beds.
No, wondrous maid, you bear a heaven about you, a heaven of virtue that is proof against the furies' rage and fortune's utmost spite. You are above them all. Oh, take me to you, and by conjunction of your goodness, make me higher than the power of fate can reach.
These are no times for Hymen, when the frown of all the gods lies heavy on our house. Oh, move that suit no more. But yet, as far as my chaste sorrow can admit of love, let this suffice you. I do love your soul, and if this storm should clear and I have power to marry ever, Aemon is the man of all the world I choose.
Oh, heavenly voice, this promise from divine Antigone, more than fruition of the proudest beauty that e'er mortality could boast, revives me and makes me ever happy. All the hours that from my country's cause and from the war I can be spared, I'll keep as holy ones to pay devotion here. Here I'll relate whatever fortune throws on doubting thieves. But one chaste kiss and so farewell.
You have it. Ye powers of love, be all auspicious now. Hymen, redeem the wrongs that thou hast done our house already. Had I never seen young Aemon's face, ne'er known his matchless worth, no other man or mind had e'er had power to warm Antigone's cold breast with love. Prosper that flame that you yourselves did move.
And we can infer there is an exit, though I'm questioning whether the previous scene... I'm almost wondering if Oedipus is still having a kip slightly further upstage or something. There was a sort of sense, or just between some curtains and closed him in, and then stepping out, and so that there's a sense of flow to those scenes. Again, this is very concise, and I said we've mentioned already that we were quite down on Cleopatra. You know, one of the most famous love stories in all history, and it felt utterly passionless. Whereas this, I was quite moved by in places. I thought this was really nicely done. There's a real sense of, you know, you really don't want to be in love with me. Everything about me is terrible. But you know, that little chink of hope in there, just that little chink of hope, works really nice. And there's lots of little lines from, or a couple of lines from Antigone, where the end of the line of the verse sort of pivots. So I love you better than so to work your ruin. I mean, it's that it's really nice, and that happens a few times as well, where the direction of the sentence is actually balancing where it's going, and I really liked that very much. Other thoughts, Liza?
Yeah, when the verse sort of when that balancing effect occurs, it can be balancing, or it can give a sort of chopped up effect to the speaker's thoughts, which is sort of an authentic thing when there are high emotions like this going on. And so far in the play, Antigone is very much about love. That the first scene, the dialogue is very much, I want to kill myself. No, I love you. Please don't. And the second scene is very much, I want to marry you. I love you so much that I have to say no, which is an amazing thing. And that little bit of hope at the end saying, if I'm ever to marry, I will choose you. And of course, this is an audience who all know how Antigone's story ends. And I think tragedy is at its most tragic where you can clearly see the paths whereby things could have not gone wrong.
Yeah. Tom?
Just to echo what everybody else has said, this is beautiful writing. This is a real tour de force. It lands beautifully.
And it's the economy of it. I mean, it's these are two very short scenes. It's pitched something at us. We know where we are. We know who these people are. It's very, very efficient. Matthew,
just the psychology of it. In the previous scene, it said your cruel self against yourself, and then we've got this understanding of bliss, love, heaven, fate, soul. It's quite sophisticated in its discussion of ere morality could boast. And I just love the blink of an eye with reference to there's your social political context with the country's cause and from the war. The war. It's just graceful. It's nice.
Okay, well let's gather more from Act 1. We can say most of these scene divisions are inferred, but they are fairly reasonable. Act 1, Scene 3, enter Dircus and Ianthus.
'Tis so, Ianthus. Aemon is in love with fair Antigone. No other passion could make so fresh a youth and spirit as his to seek such sad retreats. From that dark grove which clothes Cythereon's rough and craggy top, where far from sight in company of men the woeful Odysseus laments alone his hapless error's fault. Unseen by any but good Antigone, his pious daughter, how oft of late brave Aemon has been met. What but her love and power to draw him thither?
She is an object worthy of Aemon's love, the mirror of her sex, a lasting pattern of piety to all succeeding times.
As much true worth and manly virtue lives in noble Aemon's breast. He is the true brother of Menaetes, whose devoted head saved Thebes from ruin.
True, if Thebes be safe, as never fairer were her hopes than now. The Argolian forces are disheartened quite, and of their 7 proud leaders, which of late beset the gates of Thebes, but 2 are left, only Adrastius and our banished prince. If we, I say, be safe, we owe that safety to Creon's sons, to brave Menaetes' death and Aemon's living valour, won by death, gave life to thousands. To other noble life deserved an easy way to fame than death.
But I have heard news from the enemy's camp. All's quiet there, and 'tis supposed they mean to fight no more, but secretly dislodge and fly away by night.
It is like enough, and would the king be ruled by my advice, he should not follow them. There has been split already blood enough in that unjust, unnatural cause. Those brave Argolians, whose virtues we, along their enemies, must needs acknowledge and lament their deaths, beside those dearer funerals which Thebes had mourned already for, to justify the broken faith of King Aeschylus, and whose that makes to us so speedily thy looks speak news. So thy looks speak news. What are they, man? Be brief.
For indeed has entered a Nuntius to Dircus and Ianthus.
The king was walking round the city walls when straight a parley sounded from the foe, and Polynices, our exiled prince, himself appeared, who from below complained so many noble funerals had paid the forfeit of his brother's perjury. Defied him then, and challenged him alone to end the difference in a single combat.
Oh, horrid, monstrous challenge.
Has the king accepted it?
Yes, with a seeming joy, and did complain alone that he himself was not the challenger.
Unnatural.
Though many that were by persuaded him he need not answer it at all, his strength was great enough to keep the crown without it.
But piety, however, should forbid it.
It did not move his breast. Thou shalt, quoth he, immediately at head of all our troops find us prepared to answer, and to take mistake away, we'll wear our royal crown. It grieves us only 'twas thy motion first. And one of us, when this black fight is done, shall without rival keep the Theban crown.
Come, Dircus, let's away, and or prevent or see the issue of this dire intent.
So we have the war that has been mentioned in passing is given more detailed exposition. Though again, there's that sense of the scenes flowing into each other, like Dircus and Ianthus have seen Antigone and Aemon part or exit, so that it's in their mind, or at least. I mean, that doesn't have to be literally how it's staged, but the people who have just left are in the mind of the people who come on. And again, I'm liking that flow, and that leads us relatively naturally to the question of it would be great if they could get together someone who's helped save Thebes, and well, if Thebes is safe, because there's still a war going on. Where are we with that? And if we're in the sort of 7 against Thebes territory, well, 5 of them have been in this version have been battled off, and there's still two opponents left. Whereas in the narrative I'm more familiar with, they all attack pretty much at the same time, and you have news from all the different angles, and this is a slightly different ordering of events, because you've got Polynices and Eteocles having their 1-to-1, and of course brothers fighting brother. Oh no, Liza.
Yeah, it's very economical, this scene. In some other dramas that we've read, someone would stand there and for 5 solid minutes expound the history of the 7 against Thebes. In this one, I guess they're assuming that their audience already know what the 7 against Thebes is, so they just say things like, the king was walking around the city walls, without identifying who the king is. So...
Yes, has anyone said it?
And I think without mentioning that they're brothers, the king is Eteocles, right?
Yes,
it's not Creon.
No. It's Creon takes over once. Spoilers. Once he's dead.
So this is why they're saying he shouldn't have accepted the challenge. Piety should forbid him to accept the challenge. He shouldn't. No matter what honor demands, he shouldn't kill his own brother. So, but the dialogue doesn't seem to mention that they are brothers. So that's like a whole thing.
It's unless this is a tweak further, and it's not going there, but it does seem to be that's where it's going. But you're right, Nuntius. When Nuntius comes on, you do not expect Nuntius only to get about 12 lines. You do not, this is not the expectation of a Nuntius. Tom.
Well, again, the whole tension of the drama is this intimacy, this personal one-to-one dynamic that happens at that time. There was no sort of like mass slaughter, or it was usually an intimacy where the noble souls fought each other, and I think that's in the writing all the way through. This nobility and this depth of character.
Okay, we're going to go to what I'm calling Act 1, Scene 4. Some might just designate it as Act 1, Chorus, but it's a bit more complicated than that. So we will have the entrance of a chorus now to the action.
In Thebes, yet find no peace, nor see a period of her misery. What booted brave Menaetes' death, who gave up his devoted breath to save his country? What the falls of all those worthies whom the walls of our sad Thebes late trembled at? Bold Capaneus, whose strange fate no human strength, but from above the thunderbolts of armed Jove could work. The stout Hypodonum and Meleagus beauteous son, Apollo's sacred prophet too, quick to Avernus forced to go, and Piraeus to prevent the fates. By his so strange descent, frightening the ghosts that dwell below, nor could the fatal sisters know, before they saw him amongst the dead, that they should cut his vital thread. These and 1,000 worthies mo are fled down to shades below, and yet the wicked part of war doth still remain, and princes are both yet alive and yet do hate. What end can be composed by fate? Their hate is pious, but to try the cause were more impiety. Our fears do still increase, the skies are filled with naughts but prodigies, which woes and ruins do display. I long to hear what fate today the field affords, relate to us how blacks o air and ominous.
Enter Nuntius to chorus.
Then hear a story that might make amazed nature's self to shake. The princes both are slain, alas.
What guilty hands could act such tragedies?
Nay, there's the sorrow of it, and a grief worse than their deaths are. In a single combat, they slew each other.
Black family, but yet relate the manner of their death.
When this great war of one divided womb, two brothers met. Both armies stood at gaze, amazed both. The grieved gods of war withdrew their presence from so black a fight. Bellona broke her lance, the blue-eyed maid fled from the field ashamed, and Mars drove back his Thracian chariot, in whose stead the Furies marshaled the field, and all the Ogygian ghosts in a black ring beset the combatants, blasting the day with damps of Acheron. No trumpets sounded, nor shrill cornets pierced the wounded air. For these the knights, sad king thrice thundered from Avernus, thrice the earth with mournful groans gave signal to the fight. Old men complained that they have lived too long to see that horrid sight. The women shrieked, and weeping mothers from the walls forbade their children to behold it. But the princes with such a furious hatred both encounter, as if the souls of all their slaughtered friends and both the armies whom their cause engaged had lived in them, till fate so cruelly balanced their strength that both were slain, yet both were guilty conquerors.
But did they die together then?
Eteocles fell first, o'er whom before death closed up his eyes bloodless and feeble Polynices stood, and from his head taking the imperial crown, impaled himself therewith. At last, quoth he, thou art mine own. Oh, do not close his eyes, pale death, till he have seen me wear the crown. But I must leave it too. Oh, short reign, if there be justice in the other world before great Minos' urn, if Minos' urn be not a fable, will I summon thee, nor shall this combat end our enmity. Then on his brother falling down, he died.
Oh, horrid fight. Bright Phoebus, hide thy head, wrap up the day in foggy clouds, and make an endless night, to hide this tragedy from human eyes. A blacker deed than this thy light did never discover. Here let all the prodigies that threatened us have end.
The Argives all with winged speed are fled, and Thebes once more has peace, but that, I fear, long cannot last.
What storm can threaten now?
Creon no sooner was saluted king, for so he was since both those princes fell, but he commanded, oh fond tyranny, no man on pain of death should dare to bury one body of the Argives. They, alas, remain exposed in the open field to feed the fowls or perish in the air. Nor must the Argives only want the rites of funeral, but Theban Polynices, because with them he fought against his country, remains exposed, as the Argives are in the open air. Whoe'er shall bury him, his own dead carcass shall supply the place.
Thebes will, I fear, incur the enmity of nations by this act, and we shall wish, if Creon so begin his froward reign, thy unhappy house of Oedipus again.
And so we close Act 1, and finally we get the Nuntius speech we all were expecting. Nuntius coming on and explaining what happened in the battle. The chorus basically sort of coming on and providing an air break so that the battle can happen. I mean, I've been very positive about this one so far, but a couple of issues. I mean, I don't mind some classical referencing in a classical work; it's sort of expected. But some of the names they're throwing out here are either obscure versions of their names or really obscure elements that I'm not as familiar with as others. So every so often, when you have quite a few one after the other, you start going, okay, I'm not really following this as much. Now, I'm sure for many of the audience and the people reading this back in the day, that was a very much expected thing. But there is a slight part of me going, okay, a few issues, minor issues there. It's not too much of it, but occasionally there's slightly too much of it. Also, there is an element that sometimes there's too much concision. Maybe a little more air breadth might be nice, but I'm not going to complain about anything being too short at this stage. So that's not bad. But I think just to temper my own earlier positivism, that's not to say this doesn't contain some issues. But I thought that was a good description of with a nice bit of quoted speech at the end. Some nice stuff in there. Thoughts from the room. Disagree with anything I say if you wish. Matthew.
I was gutted. I was like, oh God, everything, the melodrama. I was like, oh, here we go. I thought it was like the nursery rhyme nature of it. It just did a big turd on what I was really enjoying. It was so good. And now it's every literary trope. I was like, I've had enough. I'm signing out. I didn't enjoy saying it. It was just thinking, how are you going to dig deep? How are you going to make this articulate, emotionally intelligent? It's like, why don't I just get my nursery book out and say, once upon a time, there was a war. I just think it just defecated on the intellectual relevance and resonance. What was happening before? Did someone else write this bit?
No, it's all him.
Well, you often do see... in plays like this, you often see the choruses are in a different meter, and often they're in several different meters. So it's just that it was rhymed tetrameter. That was what was bothering you.
No, I just didn't like. I just thought I'm in a different play. I've just gone through a different evening. I was absorbed. You've hypnotized me. The beautiful line of a mirror and the psychology and the intelligence and the intimacy into me see. And then you rinse it out. I know we don't like saying Shakespeare here, but just you rinse it out with some trite. And I know later on we're going to bang on about third hag, second hag, stop. Just have some ownership over what you're doing. I just think it was trite.
And... but never mind. Yeah, I know, and there is something like.
What did that mean? Did that mean shut off?
Yeah. No,
actually,
that's
no. It doesn't. It doesn't mean shut up. The duck is summoned when someone mentions that other thing.
The house rule.
Sorry.
No, we've all been ducked in our time.
Yes.
Robert's even had to duck himself once or twice.
I have. It has been known. Yes,
Respect.
but no, I know. I think it's a fair point. There's something like this is how you're supposed to do a classical drama. You should have a chorus, and the chorus verse form will be this narrower line, and it's going to do something slightly different. And then I like the Nuntius. But I agree. But then I'm never a fan of the chorus, so we're very much on the same page there. Other thoughts? It is doing a slightly different job to what the earlier scenes were doing. Because the earlier scenes were people talking to each other in a different way. Liza.
Well, I mean, I guess one of the ways in which you could make this work on stage is to establish who the chorus is. I'm wondering, often the chorus are women, played by boys generally, although not exclusively if this is a private performance in a family home, say. But the chorus does express fear, and they express fear as to what this is going to end out, and they're conscious of the outrage, of the impiety of brothers fighting each other, and that nothing but disaster can follow from this. And then the chorus has a dialogue with Nuntius. So the chorus does seem to be a character. And I guess if I were directing this, I'd encourage the chorus to be as much of a character as they could be, rather than simply relating things. But yeah, choruses by their nature, ever since Greece, they tend to comment on the action rather than act. So it can be hard to stage this. And it does, because this play has been so well paced and so forward flowing, it does seem to stop the action a bit. So I can see where you're coming from.
Mm. And it might be, it's also a structural problem that with this, starting before the war, which is very important to the plot for what comes next, but you then have to get to the other side of the war, which means you have to sort of explicate the war without necessarily dramatizing it, and maybe the choruses will improve.
We pray.
We shall see. Maybe there was a structural hump that had to be got over there. We shall see. Let's dive into Act 2 and see what happens, because we have 3 people on stage at the same time. I know, it's exciting. 3 different people, all potentially interacting. Act 2, Scene 1. Enter Ornitus, Argia, and Deiphile.
Where shall we vent our griefs? What power on earth can lend our woes redress?
Accursed Thebes, is it not enough thy guilty soil hath drunk so many princes' bloods? But after death unto their ghost thou shouldst still prove us a foe, and bar that what nature and all laws bestow.
Whither is goodness fled from human breasts? Tigers themselves, if tigers could perform these rites of funerals, would now correct the malice of mankind.
What shall we do to appease the ghosts of our unburied lords?
Go sue to Thebes, perchance the sighs and tears of weeping queens may move the tyrant's heart.
No, royal ladies, banish from your breast that flattering hope. No tears nor prayers can move the ruthless tyrant's mind. An impious oath hath bound his cruelty. His watchmen tell the carcasses and guard the place to keep sad friends from thence. No creatures have access to that dire field, but beasts and birds of prey. His hate is constant, sooner hope to appease Osiris's altars or the fiends themselves than savage Creon. Venture not to Thebes.
What other courses is left to us?
To perform to their dear name such empty funerals as fortune will allow. Or if that will not suffice, go speedily to Athens. Thither all-conquering Theseus is returned, triumphant now from the Amazonian war, whose mighty arms all savage tyrants dread, whose high heroic thoughts were ne'er averse from suppliants, and for encouragement to all that come in midst of Athens stands a gracious altar, where white mercy dwells, the poor man's goddess, shaded with a grove of suppliant olives and chaste laurel trees. None are denied denied to enter but the rich and fortunate. Poor wretches night and day find free access and therefore have leave to pay their cheap devotion. No slain bullock's blood, no frankincense, nor rich Arabian fumes do feed that altar. Sighs and floods of tears are all that goddess craves. No gold adorns our humble roofs as those proud temples raised by happy monarchs and great conquerors. Instead of trophies and triumphal robes, torn hair or widows' mourning garments hang about the temple. Thither from all coasts unhappy souls repair, sad folk subdued in war or banished from their native soils, or those whom hapless error has made guilty. There they implore and there obtain their peace.
Argia? Desna? No? No? Go on, somebody else read it. Is that what you're saying? Right, okay, something's gone wrong there. Okay, go to Athens, sister, and entreat great Theseus' aid, whilst I, whose fatal quarrel was cause of all this dire and mournful war, will try what mercy can be found in Thebes.
Do not expose your life to such a hazard.
What mischief can an humble and suppliant fear? Besides, my suit to Creon will in Thebes be seconded by Polynices' friends. Go you with speed to Athens, if I fail, that your petitions timely may prevail, and all the gods prosper your pious suit. And Tom, just read the next line, because I don't think it's mine.
May Thebes prove gentle when Argia enters.
And exeunt Deiphile and Ornitus remains Argia and enter Menaetes. And again, I'm not sure if Argia says this or not. So I'm going to say, Matthew, could you read this next speech just coming up? Because I'm not sure who says it.
Now am I free to act what I design. Shall I expect the doubtful grant of Creon or Theseus lingering aside, whilst thou, dear Lord, art food for vultures? Whilst thy funeral decreases daily, and thy wandering ghost, perchance complaining to the infernal gods, callest me unkind and cruel, I will lose no longer time, no danger shall withstand that act which love and my chaste fires command.
So there's some confusion here with speakers, and I'm genuinely not sure what is going on here. I did go through it and have a look, and it does seem to be a confusion in the text. Thoughts from the room, because that suddenly sounded like that should be Antigone, frankly. That last bit, and yes, I'm really not sure what's going on there.
I don't know. It sounds. I think it might be.
Yes, it should be Argia. It should be Argia. All of that.
It
yes,
should be
it
Argia.
should be. Sorry, that's absolutely right. The line, there is that line with the question mark next to it in your script that I'm not sure about. But
yeah, that reads more like an exit line for Deiphile or Ornitus.
Ornitus, yeah. I loved that speech about go thee to Athens. I thought that was just glorious. I don't know whether he appears again, or she appears again. I don't know, but that was just beautiful. It invokes a world spectacularly well. That you can see, it encompasses what you need to do. Yeah, it was one of those speeches that creeps up on you, and you don't expect anything. You suddenly get that glorious ping moment of reading something very, very beautiful. We've recovered from the chorus at least, Matthew.
Now, just on an explicatory note, for those who don't know the backstory, who is Argia? Has it been stated?
No, but I think I've got a feeling is she the wife of another, not a prince, or is she Eteocles or Polynices' wife or something? Possibly.
Yes, I mean she is Polynices' widow, but I'm just saying the text didn't really tell us that, did it? And that's why I wasn't sure who was doing that final speech until someone started saying it, and I go, "Oh right, I know who she is," and
There's
therefore
a
she
vague
has that
Prince
speech.
reference.
But I don't know the play tells us that, and that's a problem.
Yeah, it vaguely talks about Prince, doesn't it? But it doesn't ever say which. I think you need to insert a whoever it was again.
Yes. Why are
Further
you
up.
so sad? Your husband is dead, my lady. Kind of thing. It's quite difficult to think of a line or a thing to throw in, because it's not like. Because it's not. This is the thing about a play like this, is doing something slightly different with the story we're all familiar with. I'm sure many of us are familiar with Sophocles' take on it. These are characters, who want to bury, one of the bodies, and we're not immediately following down Antigone's "I want to bury the body" route. We're following somebody else, and that sort of throws us a little bit, which is not inherently a bad thing. It just needs to be slightly better explicated, because we have two sisters, so yeah, it's odd, but an interesting scene. I'm not saying that the scene is not in of itself uninteresting. It feels more, again, it feels personal, because it's someone who's got stake about someone who's died, rather than random chorus saying bad things happen in odd verse. I'm talking a lot. Somebody else talk. I'm just vamping, remember, until someone waves at me. Otherwise, we'll just go forward.
No, just to answer that, I had to reflect. When you called that out, I was already thinking, right, stop everything I need to know. I think I know about this, and shift the performance style and the clash of the style. The congruence of what I was experiencing had me going. And now it was like, okay, well, let's go big with this. They want big chorus. You want to chime those bells of that odd rhyme. Let's do it. And actually, that was quite rewarding. Art food for vultures, fire, love, unkind. I'm thinking, okay, you got your beef now. We're back on. It was different. There's more meat on the bone. I just think Hansel and Gretel will be turning in the graves at the other stuff.
Wait, did Hansel and Gretel die? Did the Grimm brothers lie to me?
Well, to be fair, Liza,
Margaret Atwood's version, probably.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Liza, they died eventually. I can't state precisely when they died, but they're not still alive. I'm afraid. Whether they lived a long life, I don't know. Anyway, let's go to Act 2, Scene 2. So we have the entrance of Creon, Eurydice, Ianthus, and Aephytus.
Move me no more in that. Can Aemon find no magic amongst all the noble Theban maids, nor foreign princes, but Antigone, to mix the fortune of our house with that incestuous, dire, and fatal family? Move me no more, I say.
But good my lord, weigh not alone her hapless parentage, though that were royal and allied to you in near degrees, but her admired virtue, in which the general voice of people speaks her as much excelling as the worst of all her wretched race were infamous for vice.
What real virtue ever could proceed from such an impious stock, or being born could ever prosper?
Do not tax so far the justice of the gods that they should punish in good Antigone her kindred's crimes. They have already with dire punishments paid for their proper guilt, and her rare virtues by the same law may challenge as a due the greatest blessings that the gods can grant.
No act of hers can recompense the guilt her birth alone has brought into the world, and now will purge the city. Aephytus, go find out Oedipus, and in our name confine him to Citharon. Speak in death, if e'er he show within the walls of Thebes his ominous head.
That banishment, my liege, is come too late. He is confined already unto his latest home. Grief for his sons has broke at last his great and stubborn heart.
Sorry. The Queen Jocasta, hearing the sad news, beating her breast, tearing her hoary hair, and uttering sad complaints against the gods and fate's several decrees, at last espied that fatal sword by which Oedipus died, on which she fell and ended her sad life.
We have no tears for her, although our sister, Let all the plagues that Thebes so long has felt take end with them. None but Antigone is now remaining of that family. Go thou, Ianthus, in our name, command her to keep our house in Thebes, not stir from thence until our further pleasure shall be known.
Exit Ianthus.
Be good to her, my lord, for Aemon's sake. Whate'er mishap befall Antigone, he'll deeply share in, for I fear his love is too constant e'er to be removed. Rather than lose him, grant his lawful suit.
I'd rather grant him death than marriage there.
Remember, he's our son, our only son, and virtuous too, of whom the kingdom boasts. Blast not their hopes in him. The fate of love is irresistible.
Let Aemon know will be his fate. No more, Eurydice.
Antigone.
Also, enter Ianthus to Creon and Eurydice.
Antigone was lately met alone without the city. None of all her servants were privy to her going, nor yet know whither their lady went.
Ha! I suspect what she intends to do. If I guess right, she goes upon her ruin. Aephytus, double the watch, and with a careful eye o'erlook the knaves. This night shall be thy charge. Perform it well, and thou shalt find reward beyond thy wishes. Let no negligence, no gifts, no favour, nor respect to any, unless so heir to us, make thee or them slack in your charges, as your life shall answer our strictest justice.
Do not fear me, sir.
I'll be at hand myself to make all sure.
And they exit, and once again we're getting talking about meat. We're getting some very meaty lines in there. I was liking that. We have no tears for her, although our sister. I mean, well, I mean, you can play it that way. I mean, you could bring it down. It is that thing that Creon's a hard man. I mean, again, it's painting these characters in very bold colours. And I did slightly confused, but none but Antigone is now remaining of that family. Did we get death notice for Oedipus? He was on earlier. Did he just sort of expire? I don't recall a death notice.
Yeah, it's odd. His death is just related.
We get told he's already in Cithron, but that's all.
Yeah, it wasn't fully explicit.
I suppose he is confined already onto his latest home. I suppose if you change that to last home, it would bugger them.
Oh, it's his banishment. So yeah, so it's okay. So it's within the confines of the city. It doesn't have to be dead. So that's right. That's few. I was just and in this version, Jocasta falls on a sword. There are different death methods available for Jocasta, but it's a fatal sword by which Orlaeus died as well. So it's full of significance. But yeah, they've sent Oedipus off to Kithiron, and again, it's all very concise. It's getting all the beats in there. It's giving us, juicy lines, and it's setting up plot in a way that, I say, the previous scene wasn't quite doing, and I wasn't quite sure. I mean, there's some meaty stuff in it, but I'm still not quite sure how that connects with everything else yet. But I'm sure it will soon. We shall see. Any other thoughts?
Just the psychology again, with her admired virtue in which general voice of people speaks. I was like, oof. And what I loved is do not tax so far. And then no acts of her. And then that banishment, it's like boundary, push against it. Another boundary, boom, push against it. Another boundary, push. And I just thought, vipers. We're getting into it. And then it just got very Tim Curry with the idea of Rocky, we have no tears for her. And it just, we went very Rocky Horror Show. And I think regardless, it's, if you're going to do it, it's like light it red, or, it just had a different world to that. And I think it was like, we're going pantomime dame in the text. We've got, got all the little people talking about these different things, but I did respect the boundaries and the pushing against it,
I'm sorry, Creon. I like Creon. Creon, sorry. as I said in the chat, I nearly did Brian Blessed during that.
But I say, but you could do it. You could do it. Well, you could do quiet Brian Blessed, which is the most dangerous kind of Brian.
Son of God, Dennis Potter, Brian Blessed.
Yeah,
Go there.
You could definitely bring it down. It doesn't have to be big. And I say it's the concision that this text is aiming for. It manages to do in a few words. The position he's got. There is no backing down of this Creon. This Creon is just gonna is absolutely gonna do what he's gonna do. Creon does what Creon does. Okay, let's find out what Antigone does. Act 2, Scene 3, and we have Antigone's Solar, rather.
Host to the west, bright Phoebus, and thou, night that robst mortality of light, to lend them a greater blessing, rest and sweet repose. Spread thy black mantle o'er yon morning fields, which those dead Grecians strew, where too long my wronged brother Polynices lies, barred by unnatural and injurious Thebes, dead from a tomb, as living from a crown. This wrong I must redress. Assist me, virtue, and all ye gods that favor piety. I have at last escaped the curious eyes of all that watched my actions, and expect naught but the safe concealment of the night. Were but these rites performed, not Creon's spite, nor racks, nor tortures could my soul affright.
Exit Antigone. We'll go straight into the chorus for the act 2, Scene 4, as I've got it. Chorus of Thebans enters, and they are broken up into different speakers.
What could the Agorian ghosts, though once our foes, deserve so much from us, as thus to lose the rites of funeral which all mankind justly expect from greatest foes to find? Why should the land that gave them death deny them spatula? Pursuing enmity farther than what? Why with so black a stain dost thou pollute the entrance of thy reign, unhappy Creon? Thwarting nature's law, upon thyself and fatal Thebes, to draw the hate and curses of nations. Who will make their quarrel theirs? Pluto himself will take revenge for this great loss. That must befall his monarchy. Whilst these Algorians all unburied lie, wandering 100 years, exiled from him for want of spatula. Don't know how to say that word.
Thine anger boots not, Creon. 'Tis all one whether the fire or putrefaction dissolve them. All to nature's bosom go, and to themselves their ends the bodies owe. If now the Argives' bodies be not burned, they shall, when earth and seas to flames are turned. Earth will, in spite of thee, receive again whatever she brought forth, and they obtain heaven's coverture that have no graves at all. Thou that deniest these people funeral, why dost thou fly these slaughter-smelling fields? Breathe, if thou canst, the air this sad place yields. Those vanquished carcasses alone possess the ground and bar the conqueror's access.
When that annoyance shall be vanished quite, the wandering ghost will still remain, and fright the baleful place. Ploughmen shall fear to toil in furrows of this ill-manured soil. This ghostly land of ours perchance shall be ta'en for Avernus by posterity, and claimed by Pluto as his monarchy, where 1,000 wandering souls together fly. Clear dirty shall be made the poet's theme, instead of muddy Styx, whose fatal stream the ghosts to strive to be transported o'er by cherished Charon to Elysium's shore. And rather than so great an host should seem exiled from thence, it will be thought by them another Acheron shall here be made, and they possess their own Elysian shade.
What shall we do to cure this fatal stain upon our nation?
Nothing but complain.
And
That's a great
please register with the complaints department of Thebes. I mean, I was just literally putting into the chat that this chorus is more meaty than the one in Act One. I'm slightly more with this chorus, and then it ends on this weirdly pathetic line, which Liza tried to really give weight and make work, but it doesn't quite work. It does sound like let's start a Twitter campaign. It needs a hashtag. It's weird. Liza.
Complain in this era has more of a vibe of lamentation. Right, than of, excuse me, the vacuum cleaner isn't working right. That's it is a more emotional word, I'm pretty sure, in this era, but it is, and it's also, I mean, speaking this in Britain in 2023, where we've got quite a while to go before the next general election and a government bent on doing its worst. The attitude of Creon towards the unburied dead did kind of remind me of the attitude of our current government towards refugees. That, not burying the dead, even if they're your enemies, you bury them so they can get to the next world. Otherwise, you've killed their souls as well as their bodies. And more to the point, although this this is ancient Greece, long before anything like a UN exists, but there's a consciousness that if you don't bury the enemy dead, then they have no reason to bury yours. So that's also part of how the whole piety thing works. It's that, you won the war, just bury these guys because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Also, they're getting kind of stinky.
Yes, and there might be a way of just tweaking that line, because if it landed on just plain and the emphasis on plaint, but without the com, then if we just find a way of making that work, and just get back to that sense of what it's doing, rather than, I say, landing in a way that the modern doesn't land on so well. And it's interesting, that question of how the Antigone speech should be performed as well. Is it literally that's as she's burying the body, or I don't know how in this version the body is being buried. There are versions on how elaborate that ceremony could be. So, yeah, is that an action again? Is that something happening? We've got to the end of Act 2. And that real sense of, again, just action. It's a pace. There's very little chance to sort of stop and think and sort of take it in, because it's so sparse. So it is doing more than just delivering plot beats, but it's really interesting. I've had this with a few plays where it feels like I think we said this quite recently. I've said this quite recently, that it feels almost like a film script in the sense of its sparseness. It's not hanging around, and that's not a criticism, because I'm liking its concision to a large degree. But now that I've got to the end of Act 2, I'm sort of going, maybe you could stretch it out a bit and do a bit more with them. Not necessarily the chorus. I'm quite content with the length of the chorus. Shorter is fine. Greg.
Sepulchre was the word you were struggling with, Matthew. Sorry.
What is that? Can I ask what that is?
Tomb.
It's what?
Is it empty tomb, or have I got that wrong?
Yeah. It's a form of a variation.
Yeah, a tomb without a body in it, essentially.
Without a body. Cool.
Sorry, Kev. I just didn't feel like my chorus took the journey anywhere.
Just love the word putrefaction. I was like, yeah, like that word.
You could smell it, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I must admit, I'm not a fan of the choruses in this one, and I usually am more chorusy, but yeah.
Just saying about the Twitter.
Sorry?
Just saying about the Twitter thing. If that was, the three last politicians coming out of the Houses of Parliament in the chamber, and then it's gone this epic, lights come down, and then they're just chatting about what's been going on, and then nothing to complain. Liza, I thought you'd made that up, and then I saw it written down. I was like, nice, that's a class. It was just because it just undercuts it. And I think the sensibility that's been which play are we in? What style are we doing? That helped. That really did unlock something for me. Nothing but complain.
Right. Shall we move into Act 3? We're not going to finish Act 3 today. We're going to get to about midway through, but this seems chunkier. But that could just be my imagination. So, Act 3, Scene 1. Enter Aemon.
My fears have brought me early to this place. The night is young, no watch is yet a set. How sad and deep a silence does possess these morning fields. But why should that seem strange? Why shake I thus? Why do my coward thoughts tell me 'tis ominous? Is it not night? And who dares tread on this forbidden ground? The ravens, wolves, and vultures here have filled their hungry maws and now are gone to rest. Noise should I expect unless the ghosts of these dead Greeks with querulous cries should fill the air of night. What horror thus invades me? Is it because the screech owl cried about me passing the gates of Thebes? Because tonight I have so often stumbled on dead men? These are toys for children. Let not fear that ever was a stranger to this rest reign in it now. 'Tis Antigone, whom cruel virtue will command tonight into a world of danger, is the cause of all my fear. O fair Antigone, why art thou good, so excellently good, to make me more than wretched? You bright stars that do eternally with Phoebus rule and measure time. If virtue be akin to heaven, and you, if your fair influence govern this lower world, let not the night, which is your time of reign, give privilege to murders, witchcrafts, and infernal arts, while virtue suffers and white innocence is made a prey. I'll watch the fields tonight, but not be seen till time require mine aid. Secretly shrouded in yon cypress grove, I'll watch what fortunes do attend my will.
And actually, I'm going to pause there. I mean, it could be split as a separate scene. From the next. It isn't in the version I'm looking at. We're looking at. I mean, it's a really nice counterpoint actually to Antigone's earlier speech, and it's really it's painting a context. You know, he's scared. He's tripping over, and it's not. Is it because I heard a scritch out, or is it because I'm wandering around a lot of dead bodies? Because this, it's night. He's surrounded by the dead. I mean, this is awful thing to be doing, and he's doing it to but no, actually, what he's really afraid for is Antigone. He's not afraid for himself. Actually, he's afraid for what's going to be happening, and hence the fact that he's on this vigil. Again, this is not an element of the story that I am familiar with, so I'm really interested what the author is doing here. So yeah, I don't know what sources it may be from something, and I'm just not aware of it. But yeah, Tom.
Again, the very next line, I think it makes it gritty in or realism. Tut, these are toys for children. Let me not fear. I mean, these people, these men that are used to stumbling over dead bodies. They're just toys for children. If you fear them, it's what your profession is. It's what you're there to do. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Other thoughts. But yeah, it's setting thing, and it's setting up questions of where we're going with Act 3. I mean, yeah, it's interesting, Desna.
Yeah, I was just thinking about what Tom said just then. But I kind of feel like the way it's written doesn't let you think that at first. That it leads you through his fear and his quaking and his shaking, and then it tells you that he's stumbling through a field of dead bodies, and that's pretty grim actually. And then it turns around that phrase about these are toys for children, and starts to talk about the fear is really about Antigone. But I think if I was watching this, if I was an audience member, I'd feel that this was a real sort of kind of underlining what Aemon's feelings for Antigone are, that he will actually go out in the middle of the night amongst all the ghosts and squelchy corpses to hide and kind of try and save her from whatever's coming next. And I guess I feel like this is a bit of foreshadowing that whatever's coming next isn't all that fun.
No. Yeah. True love is wandering through a field of corpses. That's it's yeah. And it's this question of also, when he's talking about, he's talking about his feelings, talking about how scared he is, or why he's scared, or all of those things. And it's a question of, is he trying to convince himself by saying these things, that, oh, no, it's not this. And, as he talks through his feelings, there's lots of different ways that actually could be played. Matthew?
Based on what discussion has happened, I think this is a very clear way of representing dissociation. I think in terms of PTSD, and I just think the child's and it's a bit lions and tigers and bears, ravens and wolves and vultures. Oh my! But this idea of dissociation, the range, the tapestry that is there, from silence to the screeching to the stars. I'm not thought of it like that, but just because I've connected with this like from the prism of psychology from the very beginning with self and self. I just think this is really clearly about dissociation.
Oh, I like that. Okay, let's pick up. We can assume it's probably in the same place, but Aemon's retired. Enter Menaetes and Argia.
The place is near. The noisome air which those unburied carcasses exhale grows stronger still. And from that feeble shine which to the night half-clouded Cynthia lends, how large a shade that lofty Theban wall spread o'er this field of death. Those twinkling lights which we from hence discern burn in the tower of Creon's cruel watch.
Oh, Thebes, a name once dear to me, but now a word of horror, endless sorrow. Yet give leave to inter my husband's person, I will love thee still, and leave my heart for evermore to dwell on thy dear ground. Hold, with what attendance, what state the great Adrastus' daughter comes, to claim her right at Thebes? How poor a claim the wronged wife of Polynices makes. 'Tis not thy wealth, nor Cadmus' stately throne, nor crown, nor sceptre that Argia claims. I crave but mourning, free, but death and dust, and such abhorred dust as thou disdainst harbour lovingly. Bestow but what thou hadst on me, and take the greatest thanks a queen can give. Thou beloved ghost of my dead lord, through these fields thou wander, and I love the rites that I perform tonight. Direct me where thy wronged body lies.
Madam, this way, nearer the city walls, my lord was slain, and there perchance he lies.
And so they exit. Enter Dircus with a sword, a torch, with a torch, something to illuminate this scene.
Prince Aemon is abroad, and woe is me. Gone with too great a confidence, I fear, upon my plot, which is defeated quite. The watch is doubled and more strictly kept than heretofore. No possibility to lay them all asleep, and what he intended to work upon it is quite frustrate now. Oh, how could I meet him but to let him know what has befallen? I'll range these fields to find him.
And exit Dircus. This is a very crowded battlefield. Enter Menaetes and Argia with the dead body.
Was this the sight was promised me at Thebes? These the triumphs of my dearest lord? Thus to thy native country dost thou bid Argia welcome? Thus dost thou requite the entertainment that kind Argos gave to thee, a stranger? Why preparest thou not the Theban palace to receive thy queen? But why complain I vainly? Thou, alas, art held a stranger to thy native Thebes, nay more, a foe, to whom the cruel ground denies that common bounty, which in death the meanest creatures challenge at her hand. Woe is me, 'twas I that caused thy fall, 'twas I that moved my father to this war, and all those Grecian princes, happy else mightst thou have lived at Argos still with me, and ne'er set foot on this accursed ground. Did I for this entreat those valiant Greeks to war with Thebes, to see my dearest lord thus all deformed with gore, trod down in dust and covered all with filth?
See, madam, see, the mortal wound yet gaping on his breast.
Oh, was this a brother's hand? But in that name I find thy guilt as much. I'd rather think thou ne'er hadst any kindred, never brother, nor other name of blood which nature meant a name of love. But where are all their tears? Where is their sorrow now? If not in Thebes, where hast thou kindred? None laments but I. To me alone is Polynices dead. Where is thy mother and thy sisters now? Where is that good Antigone, so famed for piety, whom thou so oft would praise and tell such pleasing stories of her virtue?
Enter Antigone with a torch.
About this place he lies. Dear ghost, forgive thy sister's slackness, and with favour now accept these loving though late rites I do. A Grecian lady, so her habit speaks her. Some pious sorrow brings her to this place. Lady, the gods assist your piety.
Are you a woeful-witted lady too, that come to break Creon's savage law? But yet you seem a Theban. All their bodies have rites of funeral performed already. Or does your too charitable grief extend to some unhappy Grecian soul?
I know not how to answer you. The man whose hearse I seek was once a Thebes prince, but since his native soil did prove to him so cruel and unnatural, I dare not call him Theban. Gentle Argos proved a kinder home to him and freely gave what Thebes, though due, denied, a princely state with royal nuptials. Now among the souls of those unburied Grecians wanders he, and still perhaps desires to be esteemed one of their company, hating forever, oh, woe is me, the memory of Thebes. His name was Polynices, my unhappy though dearest brother.
Oh, my heart! Are you that good Antigone whom I so long have wished to see?
I am that woeful maid.
Well, then see your brother, my dear husband's hearse. Your grief is mine.
Pardon me, royal sister, are you Argia, great Adrastus' daughter? Let me adore the best of womankind. Has your most faithful, unexampled love brought you so far and on so cruel hazards to my dead brother? Was it not enough that first so great a princess as yourself advanced a banished man and freely gave that love to him which happiest princes sought? But that his dire misfortunes evermore should make your virtue wretched.
Dearest sister, whose knowledge I am proud through thus to meet, by this true knot of everlasting love our sorrow ties tonight. I here protest no grief, no loss that banishment could bring did move so much sad Polynices' heart, as parting from thy dearest company. No name to him was half so dear in Thebes, no name so often as Antigone would his sad tongue to me alone repeat.
Then witness all ye sacred deities, though Polynices from his native Thebes were banished long, yet from a sister's heart the love of thee could never be exiled, nor Thebes without thy presence pleasing to me. How oft have I upon Cytheron's mount appeased my father's anger toward thee? And dost thou thus visit thy sister here? O my wronged brother!
Oh, my dearest lord, when first at Argos I beheld thy face, it was deformed with blood and wounded then, yet then I loved it. Fortune to my love showed thee at first a pitted spectacle, as now at last, dearest Antigone. My brother Tydeus met them then at Argos, both strangers there, before affinity had made them brothers. In a mutual rage they fought, but all the blood that then was drawn seemed but a sacrament, did confirm their after rare and unexampled love.
Ay me, how different was it from the love which here a natural brother showed to him. Argos, how far dost thou disgrace our Thebes in nature and in honour?
Royal ladies, the night grows old and danger threatens us. Be speedy now. These obsequies performed, you may with more security enjoy each other's mutual love, and then discourse of Thebes and Argos. danger, and the time will not permit it now. Not far from hence are any fragments left of funeral fire when Thebes have been burned. Those let us use, and then retire from this unhappy place.
And enter Aephytus, doing a different voice there, Desna, with the watch.
Where didst thou see those lights?
About the place where Polynices' body lies.
If any have there performed forbidden obsequies, they cannot far escape. Pursue with speed, spare none. You know your oath and penalty.
Enter Aemon and Dircus.
The watch is up, and with a winged speed pursues those lights, which my presaging soul tells me attend on fair Antigone. Should what I fear prove true, they must not seize her if all persuasions promise of reward, nor gold prevail not. The dear cause will lend this armour strength above mortality.
And end that sort of single ongoing scene sequence. It's really interesting. We have the scene set up with that speech which we've discussed at some length, and then we have various people coming through that scene, and it's not a solo effort in this version. It's not Antigone picking out the body. She wasn't burying the body earlier. She was just sort of calling on the gods to give her strength, waiting for the night to come, which again structurally I quite like, and we have these figures who, you know, these women who are all working together on the same, and they have a meeting, and it's a really, really good scene. I thought that worked really well, and that sense of input, and just that sense of, if you could do it with flaming torches and there is no real other appreciable light, and you've got, even when, you know, you've got the potentially, but you know, the watch coming through at the end, it's actually, it's something that just gives it a little bit sense of urgency and danger. And you know, they're going to bury him with bits of the funeral pyres of the Thebans, so that it's going to be ashes, and that's what they're going to use. So yeah, thoughts in the room on that, because that was great, Matthew.
I just love the intimacy and that the pivot, when you talk about structurally, the pivot of the public and the private, and the fact that royal ladies, it's rich with possibilities in performance of how to, they're speaking to each other, but they're also including that triangle there. And I just think it's really moving, and it's authentic. I really enjoyed it. That's a personal thing, but I just think it's tender. It gives love to the rage and the loss, and it's held everything that I didn't like before.
I think we're all allowed to be always a bit disappointed by a chorus. It's fine. It's basically, that's fine. Other thoughts? I thought that flowed, and it flowed really nicely between you, Desna.
I enjoyed the whole scene, even though I was three different people in it. That was quite a challenge. But I think from Haemon's opening sort of scene setting, and then you have this kind of this battlefield at night is not an empty place with dead bodies in it. It's just as rich and alive as any other daytime place in wherever they are, Thebes. And I think that, you know, that's maybe not, I don't know what a contemporary audience would have expected, but it's maybe not what I was expecting. And just thought that was really interesting. And that chance meeting between Argia and Antigone is just, it was just really nice to read as well.
Yeah, because they're both on the same mission. They're both there, and you know, they team up, and it's I am genuinely very, very, very impressed with this text. I mean, there are issues with bits of it, and I kind of wish there was more of it. And that's very rare for me to say that about an early modern play. Frequently I'm sitting there going, what are the cuts? What are the cuts? What are the cuts? Whereas here I'm sort of going, I kind of would like a bit more because there's some really good stuff here. And
but I love the urgency that shortness of time gives. That I have 2 seconds to introduce myself to you. Oh, you're my brother's husband. We have 2 seconds to talk about it. And then they include the brother. And that's sort of very much part of the funeral rites, right? Because the bad that can be said about Polynices has already been said, that he was a traitor to his city, that he made war on his own brother, that it was an impious act, and he's an incest baby in any case. But they both talk about him as someone they loved, and I found that bit really nicely written. It's not overindulgent. It doesn't hammer the point home. They're just saying, I loved this guy. He would. They don't mention that he did anything terrible. They're just like, he was a human being that I loved, and now he's dead. So I like that. That mourning is very much part of the funeral rites, and I guess that's why Creon doesn't want it.
Yeah, Matthew.
They're strong. This is not the weaker sex here. The mirror. They are strong. You don't mess around with these two. They're going to get it sorted, and it's. I think that's quite liberating, because sometimes the depiction of Antigone or the dipsy, say my brother, like Beaker from Muppets, where the elegance, the maturity, and again the rage of that is elegant, it's savvy. They're your 2 aunties you want round when there's a kick-off. They're really, really brilliant people. I really like. They're warm, like you say. They're gonna go off and do a sequel somewhere. I really just love the characterization. It's rarely I get to see. I think what it felt for me is those moments when, in the Trojan Women, when it's played really strongly and well, we're going to different places to serve different masters. I'm like, that's where it landed for me.
And yeah, and we've because it's about it's interactive relationships. It's people talking to each other, which you don't always get. That sense of people actually connecting in a way that feels real, even though it's still heightened language. It's still dancing around all the things that the other occasionally more pathetic stuff does. It's managing to balance the thing. And I think the other thing I'm really liking about this is I can see it being staged. I could see what you can do with this. I mean, this scene has painted this picture. But you don't have to do much to stage this. You just need it to be really dark and maybe some just shapes on the ground. You don't have to actually have literal bodies. You just need some lumps and bumps that you can start the scene with and move through. Maybe a bit of smoke. I can see that. And there are elements even of the first act and the second act where I could sort of see the world that you're painting here. And that's really nice because I can imagine a production, and I can imagine what I would like to tweak and what I'd like to emphasize and what I'd like to spend a lot of time rehearsing, just to really make those scenes pop, because there's something for an actor to do there, and there's something for a director to do there as well, and there's something for an audience to take in, and that makes me quite excited in a way that I really was not expecting. From this text, because we did genuinely struggle with Cleopatra, which wasn't a bad play, but it wasn't a good play. I think is the best way of describing it. So yeah, I'm going with Thomas May's Learnt. And he's mixing all this stuff together. He's taking stuff from sources. I don't know where this particular plot strand comes from. I'm assuming it's not entirely made up. It's just from a source that I'm not familiar with. And yeah, he's really weaving something here. Tom.
Yeah, it's beautifully atmospheric. Obviously, night gives an intimacy, a shroudedness. But as Matthew would say, it's the juxtaposition between that intimacy against the background of danger, because this is on point of death. that these people risk for love of Polynices, they risk everything, and so you have that tension. And usually with a good text, I'm always reminded that this is the first reading, and as you say, if you went over it and you could really go into it, it's so strong. It's really nice.
Okay. I think we're into final thoughts territory, and see what. We're only halfway through the text. We will have another session where we complete the journey, and there is much more to take in. So, Desna, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to throw into the mix?
Nothing I haven't already said, I don't think. Just it's lovely. It's amongst all the kind of the hostility and war, there's some lovely moments of tenderness. So, yeah, just really good. And yeah, I'd like to read the rest.
Yeah. Tom, do you have? You've just spoken. Do you have anything additional? No. Matthew, anything to add? Any final thoughts?
Just the line from the page 3 where it says, "No man offends, but where the will consents." I think there's a through line through everything to that point about offence, and that's been me taking offence with the style of it, the rhythm of it sometimes, but also I giving consent. It seduced me halfway through with its own sanctity, and it's secure in its sensibilities when he consents to give himself that space to show that kind of representation of rage and grief.
Liza, any final thoughts?
Just that, I mean, if Samuel Daniel had written this, it would consist entirely of one-person speeches.
Oh no, he did dialogues. He did dialogues,
but I remember the incredibly long speeches that relate things 5 or 6 people said. Whereas this, it is very much people talking to each other. And I like that because it, as plenty of other people have said tonight, it does humanize it. It gives us humanity, conversation. So yeah, I like the pacing. I like where they're going with this, or where they seem to be going. I like that more is being made of the burial scene than we get in many of the actual Greek tragedies. I guess that's my thoughts.
Yeah. I think you're being unfair on Samuel Daniel. Samuel Daniel has those lovely conversational scenes. If you said William Alexander, I would agree.
Perhaps that's what I'm thinking of then.
Samuel Daniel is perfectly capable of doing incredibly long speeches, but even those are sometimes conversational. Anyway, I'm very defensive of Samuel Daniel. I don't know why. He's fine. Yes, we have reached the end of this session. We've got one more session to say. It's not a long play. And actually, there was part of me almost said, oh, shall we just read the whole thing at pace and only stop occasionally? I'm really glad we didn't, actually, because I think we really managed to unpack some really good stuff here. So all that remains is to thank all these wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Some plague upon thee.